Thank you, Diana, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to add my heartiest congratulations to my sister recipients, the class of 2011. You are truly an amazing group of accomplished women, and I'm wowed by your smarts and your strengths. You are so deserving of all the praise and accolades that have come your way. Also, I'd like to thank my family and friends that are here today. You have formed a generous and strong infrastructure of support for me and my work. You've given me an incredibly rich life and extraordinary experiences. And to the Girl Scout Council of Minnesota and Wisconsin River Valleys, many thanks for this wonderful event. It is indeed a great honor to be recognized by such a prestigious and well-respected organization. I have to give credit to my mother for laying the foundation of my volunteer career. As my bio states, I am a first-generation Chinese American whose culture is not familiar with volunteerism. We are, however, very familiar with the concept of being useful. My mother took that concept to another level, and she expected her children to anticipate and be aware of the needs of others before waiting to be asked. If my sister Joni was in the kitchen washing dishes, I better be standing right next to her with a towel drying those dishes without being asked. It was a family expectation and a value. Mama believed in teamwork. She believed that many hands made light work. She believed in synergy. When we were 8 years old, our lives were changed forever when we moved to Goodrich Avenue. Our neighbors encouraged us to join Pilgrim Lutheran Church, and Nancy Strum, the next-door neighbor, recruited us to join Bluebirds. I was a late blooming Girl Scout like Leslie. Both church and campfire were a big part of our lives for the next 9 years, and they offered us our first volunteer and leadership training experiences. And unbeknownst to me, they would launch me on my lifelong career of being useful. Saying yes to the Junior League of St. Paul was the turning point of my life. This organization of women is committed to promoting volunteerism, developing the potential of women, and improving communities through the effective action and leadership of trained volunteers. I was riveted and awed by the brilliant role models I met at every turn, and they were willing to take a chance and invest in me and teach me about our community and its many needs. And they trained me for action. I learned what making a commitment means and the importance of keeping it. I learned to organize myself, and I learned to listen and be inclusive. I learned how to run an efficient meeting, and I learned how to amend bylaws. I know a lot of you are laughing at that. I learned to gather consensus. I learned how to ask for money and how to write a grant. I learned how to take no for an answer and not take it personally. I learned the discipline of writing, putting random thoughts into cogent sentences, and meeting a print deadline. I learned how to be interviewed and what is taken out of context. I learned to recognize a paradigm shift and embrace change. I learned how to develop strategic goals and measurable objectives. I learned how to create a budget and stick to it. I think my husband would debate that one. I learned how to read financial reports and how to allocate resources. I learned about fairness and that equal is not always equitable. I learned how to lead. I learned how not to lead. I learned how to be thankful, like don't forget to write those thank you notes. I learned about disappointments, and I learned how to celebrate successes. And I learned about networks, and those networks brought me to boards of organizations and foundations that dealt with issues that I care deeply about, like access to health care, the arts, women in transition, people with disabilities, education, social justice, literacy, and of course the Girl Scouts. Sad to say that my Girl Scout experience was not cookies or camping, but happy to say that my experience was richly rewarding. My experience was to help ensure that our council became rechartered through supplying necessary documentation to GSUSA. Also, I had the opportunity to develop the council's corporate goals that directed the council's work for 6 years. And perhaps the most interesting, yet the hardest to approach, was how do you start and advance the conversation on racism, diversity, and multiculturalism. I'm proud to say that this is my 23rd year of continuous membership in Girl Scouting. Most importantly, these organizations and foundations allow me to be useful, reinforce the concept of teamwork, and that many hands make light work. I am thankful to live in this great community that offers so much. There are so many visionary and generous people that came before us and have left lasting legacies, and we are indeed the lucky recipients of their benevolence. The most important example I can give you today, and most appropriate, is Julie Gordon Lowe, who almost 100 years ago founded the Girl Scout movement. I believe it is incumbent on each of us to do our part in paying it forward and ensuring that these legacies that were here for us will be here for others and future generations, like my granddaughter here today. On my volunteer path, I've met a lot of wonderful women, inspiring women. I admire them, I aspire to be like them. Some were role models for me 30, 40 years ago, and they continue to do that for me today. I feel like every one of the talented and generous volunteers that has ever crossed my path is standing beside me right now as I am basking in their reflected light. So thank you, Girl Scouts, for recognizing the significant role volunteers play in our community. We volunteers are striving to make a difference. We are striving to give back. We are striving to pay it forward. We are striving to be impactful. We are all working hard to make ourselves useful. Again, many thanks for the great honor.